Hi everyone, Michael Rubenfeld here. I hope you're well. I'm just at the tail end of my Jewish Arts and Activists Festival. It's been a week, and it's been, a much better festival than I expected. Particularly because this is a really difficult time to be making a Jewish Arts and Activist Festival. It's a difficult time in the world. It's a very difficult time to know how to speak about Jewishness. But at the same time, one of the things that I really love about the festival that we make, and really this kind of journey I've had coming to Poland, in a way, my move to Poland, which is about 10 years ago now, was because it felt really important to me that I developed my identity as a Jewish person and rooting it in my actual history, my actual contemporary history. And for me, that's here in Poland. My people are originally from Poland, meaning my family. And 70% of the world's Ashkenazi Jews can track their roots also to Poland, or parts of their roots to Poland. So for me, Jewishness was always very kind of confusing because I did go to a Jewish school, and my Jewish school, like all Jewish schools, really are Zionist. Now, for me, this term Zionism means many, many, many different things. I know for a lot of people, they hear the word Zionism and they're equating it with one very specific thing. But Zionism is is equated with the belief that the Jewish people should have their own country, that this is a good thing for the Jewish people and for the world. And this is something that I do believe. How Israel was formed and what's happening now is something that I have problems with, deep problems with. Um, but it's more complicated than that for me, just as it's more complicated for a lot of Jews. Even though a lot of Jews have very complicated relationships to Israel and its history, nor do Jews want to turn against Israel. So there's something very complicated in between in terms of how Jewish people are in relationship to Israel. That said, for me, um, although I've really only been to Israel once, and I've always felt that I wouldn't go to Israel unless I was willing to or ready to be able to also go into the West Bank, uh, to also get involved politically there. So I've simply not been back because I've been opposed to the occupation my whole life, or basically since my whole kind of like once I became conscious of what that is. And so as a result, I Israel was never really a country that helped me get closer to Judaism. In a way, it even made me sort of feel more distant from Judaism or from my Jewishness. But when I started coming to Poland, I did start to feel like, okay, this is interesting. This is an interesting entry point into my Jewishness. And so I ultimately made the decision to move here because it helped me feel an authentic connection to my Jewishness. I just didn't feel like the Israel narrative made me feel a connection to my Jewishness. It felt kind of like a mirage. There were all these biblical tropes, and I can understand how effective they are in terms of telling the Jewish story. But for me, it just didn't feel real. Whereas when I came to Poland, it feels real. It feels real. I'm not saying that the Israel narrative is not real. Just for me, it didn't feel real. Here in Poland, and especially in Krakow, or you can, see and touch and smell and taste. That makes it seem like I'm trying to lick the synagogues, but I'm not. But you know what I mean. Anyways, it's not only that it did feel like I'm from here, I am from here. And many people are from here. And when we started my festival, my Jewish Arts Festival, the whole idea was to strengthen the Polish Jewish identity and to advocate for the importance of strengthening local Jewish community, local Jewish narratives. Before the war, and still now to some extent, but before the war, there was the Bundes movement. The Bundes movement, they were a political party who really believed in the idea of Doigkeit, and Doigkeit means the practicing of Judaism in the place where you are. It was a kind of opposite or in opposition to what Zionism was that Jewishness, the Jews should be returning to Zion, to Israel, and that's where Jewishness will thrive. And I believe in Doigkeit. I believe that Jewishness holds a lot of importance in the places that we are, and going to Israel or trying to get to Israel does not need to be the goal. If it's the goal for some people, I'm also not against that. But I don't think that is the only goal, nor should it be. But what happened is that because the war fractured the Jewish narrative, the European Jewish narrative, and there was a strong European Jewish narrative prior to the war, very strong Jewish communities in Europe. Because of the fractures of the war, the Israel narrative came in and sort of took over. And those outside of Israel, even those inside of Israel who might not fully subscribe to the Jewish narrative that's rooted in Israel, they just didn't do a great job of telling their story, in my opinion. Certainly not in Europe anymore. The storytelling is not strong. It's stronger in places like America and in Canada and Australia, but the way that stories are being told in Poland about the Jewish narrative, and when I say stories, I mean very even localized stories, and so what we felt with Festival was that it was an opportunity for artists to have a platform to be able to contribute to the Polish and also in many ways the European Jewish narrative. And that's been something that we've always believed in for since the inception of our festival 9 years ago. It's why I wanted to move to Poland in the first place. And it's kind of wild that now, given what's happening in the global Jewish narrative, what's happening in Israel, which is, not so surprising that there's such violence if you've been paying attention. It was always headed there somehow, How it got there was unclear, but it's here. It's even more important to focus on the local Jewish narratives and to support local Jewish narratives. There are a lot of people talking about how they're not anti-Semitic, they're anti-Zionist. I have issues with the way that the anti-Zionist narrative is operating. But what I will say is that if people are anti-Zionist, but they do have the desire to not be anti-Semitic, it's really important. Certainly, I feel it's really important as a Jewish person to work harder on the local Jewish narratives right now, to continue to strengthen Judaism outside of the Zionist narrative, not in opposition to the Zionist narrative, but outside of the Zionist narrative, because the Israeli narrative, the Zionist narrative, is not the only one that exists, but they've been the most effective one in telling their stories. in the last, since the inception of Israel. But in order to do that, people need to get involved, in my opinion. And that's why we started Festival. That's why I live in Poland. That's why I even make this channel. And why I'm happy that you are here and, sometimes in conversation with me. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. It's Sunday today.